I started preparing for Mark 14, reading the chapter a few times, so much happens in Mark 14. It's the Last Supper, it's Judas's betrayal, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus is arrested and questioned, and Peter denies Jesus. There's so much here that I was thinking about, but the verses that I could not get away from were 51 and 52. A young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind. I know I have read Mark before, and I felt like I had never read those verses in the Bible before. I was like, why is this in the Bible? And so this devotion is largely focused on the naked guy in Mark 14, and here we are. But it's in the Bible, so there's some sort of purpose. There's something that Mark is trying to communicate with these two verses that are just so weird and so smack dab in all of the things that are happening surrounding it. And no one really knows who this young man was. There's some guesses, but I don't really know if it's super important for us to know in the story. I think there's some really interesting connections that a theologian out of Dallas Theological Seminary made in an article that I was reading, and he pointed out the connection between the Greek word young man and the Greek word linen that is used in this passage. The word for linen is used only one other time in Mark, and that is to describe the linen that Jesus was buried in. And not to say that it's the same exact linen, but potentially there's a connection here between what it represents. And I think with public nakedness, there's a lot of shame, and deciding to flee rather than to be arrested and associated with Jesus is shameful. That a lot of the disciples felt this shame and grieved this betrayal and this more of a complete abandonment of Jesus in his time of greatest need, that they said they would never do. And then the word young man is used also to describe the young man, angelic young man that told the good news at the tomb of Jesus, at the tomb of Jesus, that Jesus was resurrected, and he was clothed in a white robe. And so part of me thinks there's a really interesting connection here to make on what happens when we fail as disciples of Jesus, as people who are following after Jesus. What happens when we fail? And I think what we see here is that Jesus takes on our shame, and that he wants to rehabilitate, he wants to redeem, that there is amazing grace at the center of the gospel that is for us. And that when we flee and abandon him, we can later be clothed in a white robe, that we can be, that our shame can be buried with Jesus. Who knows if that is what Mark is trying to communicate in this story. I think there's also a big part of this that is a fulfillment of Scripture. Scripture said that all the disciples would leave Jesus, that he would be completely abandoned. And so something interesting to think about. I think anytime something happens in the Bible like this that makes us really curious, or that we felt like we haven't read before, we should follow that, and we should dig deeper. And I know I'll be thinking about this passage a lot, and it's just funny what's in the Bible sometimes. But I think that it's kind of amazing too. So that's the devotion on the naked guy in Mark 14. Church, love you.